Okay, let's start with the first of all four of the writing task one for academic IELTS, which is a graph with a time period. Again, this is the graph. It could be a graph, it could be a pie chart, it could be a bar graph, it could be a table. It doesn't really matter. The main thing is that it has a time period that is it shows many years. It shows a few years, more than 1 year at least. And the reason why we are grouping this as having a time period is because there's as opposed to say a graph without a time period, is that you need to approach this kind of task in a special way, okay, in a certain way which differs from this kind of graph. Okay, so let's go to the first one, graph with a time period. So sometimes you will talk about this kind of graph as a graph of a trend. Okay, what is a trend? A trend is something moving in a particular direction over the years. Okay, so you can only know that this is the trend if there's a period of time. For example, if suddenly when we talk about trends, sometimes we talk about fashion trends. If suddenly one day, okay, today everybody starts wearing this particular thing, all right, do we know it's a trend? Not really, unless there's a time period. And if somebody wears it, everybody wears it, or many people wear it today and they don't wear it tomorrow, then you can't say it's a trend, because there's no time period to justify the fact that people are starting to wear this particular thing. Okay, so that's the reason why sometimes when we talk about a graph with graphs with a time period, you're talking about graphs with a trend. Okay, because there are years. All right, for example, there are years, and let's look at this for Robbie's Bakery. Okay, you're talking about yearly income, so it's moving in a particular direction, isn't it? Okay, we could call this an upward trend. This one also, and this one's going downward. Now, even though you look at this and you look at the income, it goes upward first, but then eventually, if you look overall, it is going downward. Okay, of course, if you want to talk about just focus on the first year, 2000 to 2001, then of course it's going upward. But here overall it's going downward, here overall it's going upwards. Okay, so remember what we have to do is the first paragraph is going to be introduction, about one sentence paraphrasing the question. The next will be the overview, which will be 1 to 2 sentences. And again, as I mentioned, a big picture view, no details, no figures, no years, no numbers, but you are looking at it from a big picture point of view. All right, as I mentioned before, as though your friend's over there beside you but can't look at this particular diagram or graph, and you have to tell him or her within one or two sentences what this is about. All right, so you are not going to focus on one particular small little part. You're going to talk about it as a whole. All right, so let's go to the introduction first, which is just a paraphrase. So you're going to paraphrase this. Okay, now you look at the graph, shows data about the annual earnings of 3 bakeries in London 2000 to 2010. Okay, so how would you paraphrase? Now I'm going to give you, okay, this whole document is 28 pages. Okay, actually by right I have a more in-depth, more detailed document. This is for all four task 1 diagrams and graphs. Okay, but I have a more detailed one which is probably about 40 pages, but I've kind of like summarize the main points. Okay, so there's a lot of information here, and sometimes I give you phrases, just like in a task 2 I give you phrases, so sometimes you can use it, sometimes you can't, because one thing you must realize about task 1 task is that there's so many different kind of graphs and diagrams and bar charts and pie charts and tables, etc., and sometimes they're in combination too. All right, so you may see 2 of them, and it's so different that I cannot give you some phrases that will fit for every single kind of graph or every single task 1 task that will come out. Unlike for my task 2, I have about 4 main categories and then subcategories, and those pretty much cover every single essay question. But here it's really different because there could be a lot of differences between one task and another that you get in a different IELTS test. So you can't just think of, okay, these are the phrases, I memorize them, and therefore I'm going to use it for every single thing that can come out. Well, most likely that may be true, but then there may be some tasks that will kind of puzzle you. How am I supposed to approach this? Therefore, I don't want you to think of, okay, these are the categories, and then I learn the phrases, and then I can do every single thing. No, you want to look at the principle behind it. So you don't just regurgitate or spit out what phrases I show you and I give you, but you will be able to say, okay, I know the principle behind this. The first sentence introduction is just a paraphrase, then you have the second paragraph as an overview, then the body paragraphs which are giving you the detail. And what are you meant to do in the body paragraphs? You're meant to firstly, select and report the main features and make comparisons. Okay, this is all a test of your language. All right, but I would say not just your language, but you also have to, a test of whether you understand what the main features are. Because if you don't point out the main features, but you point out things which are not worth pointing out, then and you only have 150 words, then you'll be focusing on things which are not important. For example, let's look at this. Okay, if for example, look at this line. All right, so it goes up, then income goes down, then it goes up, then it goes down, then it goes down and up and down and then down. Okay, so now there is no way you can be so detailed and talk about every single thing here. Oh, the income increased, then after it decreased, then it increased. You only have 150 words. Okay, how many words? What is 150 words? 150 words maybe, especially for the details, maybe about after. In fact, when you do this, okay, you do the introduction and the overview, you realize that you probably take out already 40 to 50 words. All right, so you have maybe about 100 to 110 left. Okay, 100 to 110 divided by two body paragraph is about 50 words. 50 words is about 4 sentences. Okay, maybe 3 to 4 sentences. Maybe I should put 3 to 4 rather than 3 to 5 here. Okay, again, it depends on how long your sentences are. So there's no way you can say, oh, the yearly income of Lovely Loaves increased from what to what. Now just that sentence alone, it's already maybe 8 to 10 words. And then if you want to say, oh, after that it decreased, I mean, you don't have enough time. Okay, so that's the reason why you have to report the main features. So if you just look at this line, okay, what I would say is, rather than going, if I were to describe this, rather than going up, then it went down, then it increased, I would just say, okay, it fluctuated. Now I'll give you the phrases later. Okay, and then it decreased and it fell, the income fell, right? Now I may be a bit specific and say that from 2004 to 2005 there was a dramatic fall, and then after that it just went down. Okay, then after that it just decreased gradually. All right, because if you look at this is kind of like a dramatic fall, isn't it? Within 1 year, how many pounds, how many thousand pounds did it fall by? Say 90 to 60, that's about 30,000 pounds within the income falling within just 1 year. And so I look at all this, and okay, within 1 year, just kind of increased by about 10,000, then it decreased just a small amount. So when I look at this, I look at this and I say, wow, this is kind of like a major change. And that's the way you have to think about it. Focus on the major change, because as I mentioned before, the first 2 tasks, there will be a lot of, there'll be too much information, and you have to really focus on the main features. Whereas the process and the map, probably you want to report almost every single thing in order to get 150 plus words. Okay, so in the first 2, as I repeat again, and I will be repeating certain things over and over again, because you will forget. If I just say it once, we won't really be able to remember it. And anyway, for these are videos so that you can actually go through it over and more than one time. Okay, you can replay all this more than one time. You will start to pick up certain things, all right, that you didn't pick up before. So going back to this, you will have to make a decision. This is important. Think of yourself always as being a stakeholder. What do I mean by stakeholder? That means you have some kind of investment. Maybe, okay, imagine that you are buying over one of the bakeries and you have to choose between the three bakeries, and okay, which one should I buy? Okay, so if you think, you may not be a person who's buying, you may be a person who owns all three, and you need to think, okay, what changes should I make, or whatever it may be. But think of yourself somehow as involved in this, because when you start to think that way, then you will start to think about important features. All right, and you start to realize, oh wow, this is pretty outstanding. It fell by £30,000 over the year. Okay, I think this is something that's important. Oh, okay, this is interesting. It kind of like remained the same over the first 5 years. What's going on there? Oh, okay, this is interesting. This one was second. It earned the second. It was the second highest earning bakery initially, but now by the end of 2010, it became the highest earning bakery. Okay. Oh, this one, wow, this is interesting. It started with £20,000, and then it ended with about 60,000 plus. Of course, this from second position to first position, this from third to second, but more importantly, the income of Bernie's Buns increased by more than 3 times, 20 to 60. All right, so think about it like that. Once you think about it like that, and maybe you could say something like, oh, look at this year, 2007 to 2008. The income increased dramatically. There were changes. I mean, this year kind of seems pretty interesting because so many things happened. Okay, there was a dramatic increase here, there was a dramatic fall, and there was a dramatic increase again. Okay, so these are the things you want to think about, and these are the things you want to write about. Not every single thing. Maybe you don't even want to talk about, oh, this increase from just above 60,000 to 64,000 from 2008 to 2010. I mean, this is not worth talking about. Maybe even this is not worth talking about. Okay, if anything, you would say between 2008 and 2010, all three of the income, did not change a lot. Okay, the income from the bakery did not change a lot, right? Okay, maybe that's a point worth noting. Okay, so again, you have to make a decision as to what you're going to focus on, and examiners will do the same thing. They will think about, okay, what kind of areas would I need to focus, do I want to see the students writing about, because not everything is important, right? Again, remember, do not give opinions, which means, for example, you look at this, there was an economic crisis, I don't know, I think it was 2008, but say for example it was in 2007, or something dramatic happened in 2007, then you say, oh, the reason why it increased so dramatically or decreased so much dramatically is because of this reason. Okay, no, don't do that. Remember, you're not allowed to talk about opinions. Okay, so let's go to the first paragraph. So you can use this to paraphrase the question. So rather than, some of these words that, if you say the graph or the chart or the diagram shows highlights, use one of this, don't use both. Okay, these are different words, different phrases for you to use. So you could say, let's say for example, this one, the graph shows data about, so you could say the chart highlights, rather than data about, you use information about or figures for. Okay, and then you can use some of this if you can. Okay, this is a bit slightly more advanced, or you can just follow the same thing. The chart highlights figures for, and then you can talk about the annual, rather than annual earnings, the annual income. Annual and yearly is the same. Income and earnings is the same. Remember that earnings is always with an S. There's no such thing as earning as a noun without S. Okay, and then of 3 London bakeries. Okay, so over now this is something that normally most questions here, they don't talk about over how many year period. You can say over a 5-year period or 10-year period here. All right, by the way, 10, just put TEN, not 10 dash year, not years. Okay, period, between something and something, or from what to what. Okay, so this you can use either one, because this one doesn't say from what to what. If it says from 2000 to 2010, then use the other one. Okay, the whole purpose of all this is to use different phrases to paraphrase. Don't use the same thing. Or you could not even remember, you could even forget about this structure which I've given you, forget about this thing, and kind of like paraphrase it your own way. Okay, that's fine. Remember, you may come across a question where you can't use this. Okay, you can't use some of these phrases, then you just have to paraphrase it your own way. Okay, so I'll give you an example later. I think I'll give you an example of this. So let's go to, so this is just one paragraph, one sentence. Okay, next is the overview. Now, the reason why we talk about this as one category, graphs with a time period, is because when you talk about an overview for a graph with a time period, because there is a time period, one thing possible for you to do is to talk about the trend. Okay, remember I said trend. Trend is something that is moving towards something over time. So this is something possible. Every time you have a task one in the first category, a graph with a time period, think about a trend. All right. Now, why trend? Now, just think about it again. What is the overview? The principle of the overview, the purpose of the overview is to give a big picture view. So remember, I said, imagine your friend is next to you but cannot see this graph, and you want to tell her in 1 to 2 sentences what this is about. Now, there are many things you can talk about, but remember, you never go into the detail. You just have a big picture view, because in 1 to 2 sentences, you can't talk about much detail. In 1 to 2 sentences, if you're going to talk about a specific detail like here to here, then you're just going to cover it 1 to 2 sentences, that's all. And you're missing out the whole of the graph. Okay? You're missing out the rest of the graph. So that is the principle of the overview. And just imagine, I'm saying talk about the trend. So imagine if I tell my friend who cannot see this that the yearly income of Robbie's Bakery and the trend for the yearly income of Robbie's Bakery and Bernie's Buns was upwards, while that for Lovely Loaves was downwards. Now, do you think I'm telling her something which is it's good, as in it's a big picture? Do you think that is a big picture view? Yeah, I think that's a big picture view, as in you could say that and she will kind of roughly know what you're talking about. I mean, as much as she can. But you are not, you're not just focusing on one small area. So when you have trends, when you have graph with time periods, one good thing you can talk about is the overview. In the overview is the trend. Okay, and therefore I've given this to you. All right. In general, it can be seen. I can always start with in general. Overall, it can be seen. Or what stands out is that, or is clear that. Okay, and then the trend for NP. What is NP? NP here means noun phrase, which is basically what you're talking about. I mean, you don't say, okay, this is something that is students often make a mistake by saying, oh, the trend for Bernie's Buns, the trend for Lovely Loaves. Now, it is not the trend for Bernie's Buns or Lovely Loaves. What do you mean by the trend for? Okay, the trend for Bernie's Buns was upward. What do you mean by the trend for Bernie's Buns was upward? If somebody told you that without giving you the whole context, would you understand? What do you mean by the trend for Bernie's Buns was upwards? That means every year Bernie's Buns building is becoming taller and taller? Because you said the trend for Bernie's Buns. Bernie's Buns going upwards. What does it mean? It doesn't mean anything, because you have to be very accurate in task 1. It is not the trend for Bernie's Buns. It is a trend for the yearly income of Bernie's Buns. Oh, the income, the yearly income is going up. Okay, that makes sense. It doesn't make sense for you to say the trend for Bernie's Buns is upward. Okay, it's not accurate. Okay, you may look at this and you may say, and somebody looks at this and you say it to them and they understand, but I mean that's not really accurate English. Okay, they may only understand because they look at it and they say, oh, okay, you mean you're talking about the yearly income that is going upward. Okay, but if they don't look at this, if they can't see this, then how would they understand what you mean if you said the trend for the yearly income? If you say the trend for Bernie's Buns is upward, it doesn't make sense. Okay, so the trend for what, the yearly income of what was This is because it's in the past tense, okay? Upward, downward, fluctuating, flat. So upward is going up, downward, fluctuating is like that, and flat, straight, okay? So this is what you could do. So you could say something like, overall can be seen in the trend for the yearly income of Robbie's Bakery and Bernie's Buns was upward, while the same thing for Lovely Loaves, it was downward. Okay, now I've given you different kinds of sentences. You have one here, okay, it goes here, then it goes ... Or this is another sentence structure. There was a what trend in the what, okay, there was a downward trend in the yearly income of whatever. Or let me just give you an example here, okay? So okay, that doesn't really work, but so if you use this structure, there was a downward trend, this is Lovely Loaves, downward trend in the yearly income of Lovely Loaves, or the yearly income of Lovely Loaves. You see NP, every time we have NP here, you have NP here, you have NP here. That's where I put the yearly income of Lovely Loaves, okay, or Bernie's Buns or whatever. Experience a downward trend, okay? So these are three different sentence structure. You can say over the period in question, over the time period covered by the graph. Why do I give three different sentence structure? Again, because maybe if you are talking about these two where the trend is upward and this one is downward, maybe you want to use one sentence structure for this. So you could say something like, in general, it can be seen that the trend for the yearly income of Robbie's Bakery and Bernie's Buns was upward, while, use another one, while the trend for the yearly income of, now I'm using the third one, of Lovely Loaves while while Lovely Loaves experience while the annual income of Lovely Loaves experience a downward trend. Okay, so that is your paragraph, your overview. Okay, so let's carry on after we've already covered the first and the second paragraph, which is the introduction and the overview. So let's go to body 1 and body 2. Let me go through a lot of these phrases and these vocabulary, okay, and then after that I'll kind of like let you know how this all fits together in terms of writing your body 1 and body 2 paragraphs. Okay, so here I said third and fourth paragraph, body 1, body 2. Now again, just as I showed you three kind of sentence structures, okay, because we always like variety. Remember, you don't want to have the same structure always to describe the same thing. In the same, like for example, you know, when we talked about this one going up, and then after you talked about while, use the while, the conjunction while, then after you talk about this, you don't want to have the same sentence structure. In the same way, when you are in that was for the overview, but now in the same way, when you are writing about the body paragraphs, you may be writing a lot about how, you know, there was a period of stability, then after the, you know, increase or decrease or fluctuated, etc. You are talking about changes over time, okay? Then you don't want to again use the same kind of sentence structure, okay? So what you could do is you have 1, 2, 3, okay? The noun phrase first, so you could say something like let's say we want to talk about this, okay? Or well, let's just say we're going to talk about the increase, Lovely Loaves, the yearly income of Lovely Loaves increasing from just above 80,000 to around, I don't know, 95,000, okay? So you would say the yearly income of Lovely Loaves, remember, don't say Lovely Loaves, but say the yearly income of Lovely Loaves. And then you have your verb and your adverb, okay? Verb increased in past simple, okay? I'll give you all the phrases later, but I'll just give you the show you how to the three different structures here. And then maybe an adverb. Remember what an adverb does is it describe, one of the purposes is it describes the verb. So you could say increase I don't know, increase sharply. Okay, and then you have, so sharply here is to describe the increase. Okay, so increase sharply. Then you have the QSF, means quantity from start to finish, and the T period. Okay, so TP, time period. So you could say increase sharply from just above 80,000 pounds in 2000 to around 95,000 pounds in 2001. Okay, so you cover all the four colors here. The noun phrase, what are you talking about? The change in the pink, and you mentioned the quantity from the start, 2000 and 2001. The time period, the quantity from the start, which means like 83,000, and then maybe 95,000, the finish, and the time period 2000 and 2001. Okay, so that's one way of writing a sentence. Okay, let me just write it for you here. Okay, so you can say something like the yearly income of Lovely Loaves, okay, this is a noun phrase, increased sharply from around 81,000. I don't know how to do the pound sign, but you can put 81,000 pounds if you want. I can put that pound sign. I just don't know how to do it in the keyboard at the moment. To about 95,000 pounds in 2001. Okay, so this is one way of writing it according to this particular method. Now, I'm not saying, I'll tell you later, I'm not saying that you have to write this in your task 1. I wouldn't write this. The reason why I wouldn't write this, because I'm just describing in one pretty long sentence. I mean, let's have a look. Okay, let's go and see how long this actually is. This is a long 18 words. Okay, now remember we have, if our introduction is about 50 words, you will see it's about 50 words. You only have 120 left. And now if you have 18 words here, you have about maximum 5 or 6 of these sentences, and you are wanting to spend just 1/5 or 1/6 of the rest of your essay on just from here to here. I mean, that's crazy, right? So I'm not saying that you should describe it in so much detail like that. In fact, I wouldn't, because you don't have time. Okay, but I'm just showing you how to write that sentence. I'm just showing you how to write that sentence to describe just this particular change. Okay, so let's look at the other way. Okay, so this is the first method. Okay, the second method would be there was. Now you use the adjective and noun, because right now you, rather than using the verb and adverb to describe the change, you're using the adjective and noun. Okay, because the verb is here already. Okay, so there was a now what is the same thing as increase? Increased here is a verb, sharply here is an adverb. But if we're going to do the same thing, I can give you exact same description here, but using a different sentence structure, and rather than using increase as a verb, we use it as a noun. Rather than use sharply as an adverb, we use it as an adjective. So there was a sharp increase. Now you see what we're doing here? We are writing there was a sharp, this is an adjective, and then increase is a noun. Exactly the same thing, but we are using different word classes. Okay, there was a sharp increase. Increase here is a noun. Okay, in the yearly income of Lovely Loaves, this should be off here, not all. All right, and then you can use, if you want to put the same thing, you can, write the same thing again. Okay, now you're not going to write these two sentences, of course, because just showing you how to write the same thing, using different sentence structures. Or the yearly income of Lovely Loaves experienced a sharp increase, again using the adjective and noun, and then use the same thing from around 81,000 pounds to about 95,000 pounds. Sorry, you should say from around 81,000 pounds in 2000. Okay, from around, when is it? in 2000. Okay, so now this is just, I'm just showing you the three different structures here. Okay, this is the three different structures. Again, vary the way you describe the changes. All right, don't worry, you have the opportunity to replay all this again, and I'm going to give you so many phrases. Going to give you a lot of phrases, and so you'll get a bit confusing, but as you replay a few times, that you will see what I mean. Okay, so now, two possible ways to divide body 1 and body 2. Remember, you have to divide body 1 and body 2. How are you going to divide it? That's really up to you. There's no correct answer. Oh, body 1, I'm going to talk about this. Body 2, I'm going to talk about this. Everybody's going to do it differently, but these are the two ways basically. Body 1, if you're talking about a line graph, okay? So body 1 addresses 1 or 2. Let me see if I can make this. Okay, that's good. Okay, so body 1 addresses 1 or 2 subjects, and body 2 addresses the other 1 or 2 subjects. So it could be like body 1, I'm going to talk about this and this, because since both of them are in the same direction, right? And then body 2 could be the lovely loaves, okay, going down because it's the opposite. Okay, that's a possibility. The other one is body 1 can address an earlier time period, and body 2 addresses a later. So maybe I can talk about body 1, I address all 3 subjects from 2000 to 2005, and body 2, I can address all 3 subjects from 2005 to 2010. And there's no right or wrong to this. Okay, you can just basically choose what you want. And 2 things to do in the 2 body paragraphs. Okay, very important. Describe changes over time. Okay, this one, there was a period of stability. This one fluctuated. This one decreased sharply. Basically, what I just mentioned here is you're describing changes over time. All right. Or now the second thing is important. Compare within a subject or compare between subjects. What do I mean by compare within a subject or compare between subjects? Okay, I'll show you later. Okay, but I've highlighted these 2, yellow and let me put this here. So that sticks there. Yellow and green. Okay, so later when I give you the example answer, you will see. All right. Okay, now let's just go to the phrases. Remember, we talked about changes over time, and then sometimes you use the verb increase. Sometimes you use the increase as a noun, because depending on which one you're using here, 1, 2, 3. Okay, the change could be in the verb. The change could be in a noun. Okay, so depending on the different 3 sentence structures you're going to use. So if you're using a noun, this is rise. Verb is to rise, same thing. Okay, but of course there are some differences. Like for example, improvement is a noun, improve is a verb. Okay, now why is this going up, which is a huge increase, and then this way, which is like a moderate small increase? Okay, because when you use these words merely merely tells you the direction. It doesn't tell you whether the change, the rise, the increase, the growth, the improvement is big or the improvement is small. Okay, so you will use an adjective or an adverb. Adjective describes a noun, or if you're using the sentence structure that requires a verb, it uses an adverb to describe whether the change is big or small. And then that's where you go to this. If you want to use an adjective and it's a large change, dramatic, adverb dramatically, or if it's a small change, gradually. So it could be a gradual rise, it could be a dramatic rise, it could be it rose gradually, it rose dramatically. Okay, now whereas these all means increase too, but it's only a huge increase, right? You don't have this one here, it's only up like that. Why? Because these words signify that the increase is huge. You can't have an adjective or adverb to describe it. If you say it's a surge, there was a surge, or the yearly income surged, it means that the increase is huge. You can't say it surged gradually. You can't say there was a gradual surge, okay? Because the definition of these words is basically the difference is quite big, so it's a huge increase, okay? And then same thing for the phrases for decreasing, okay? A fall to fall. Again, here you could use a modifier, the adjective or adverb, to describe whether it's a huge or dramatic fall or a gradual fall. Here you can't use a modifier because all these means a huge decrease. Okay, then we go to these are the modifiers. Then we go to this, which is what you call a fluctuation, or it fluctuated. Okay, now I've given you all this in nouns and verbs and adjectives based on these structures. Okay, you could say there was a fluctuation. Fluctuation is a noun, or the income of lovely loaves fluctuated, a verb. Okay, so you choose which ones you want to use, just as I give you noun and verbs here. Okay, so fluctuation. Now this is where I'll use fluctuation. I wouldn't go, oh, it increased, then after it decreased. Remember, it's too detailed. So I'll just go, it fluctuated in the first 4 years or something like that. Okay, so from here to here. Okay, next one. Okay, you can read all this again. These are examples also. A peak, noun, verb to peak. A low point. Okay, this, you don't really have it here. Okay, a period of stability there. All right, a period of stability, or to remain stable, remain constant, remain the same. Right. Plateau, to plateau. Okay, so these are some of the phrases that you will be using. Now, then I go to more phrases. I talk about joining two changes together. So, say for example, you are talking about changes with, oh, there was a period of, there was a fluctuation in the income of lovely loaves from 2000 to 2005. Then after that, you want to talk about the huge fall maybe. Then you use these words, these phrases, rather than always putting full stop, then, and then carry on. Full stop, then. You know, you want to use a variety of phrases and ways to connect two changes. So you can put comma and then, you could put and comma and after that, or full stop following this, comma after which. Okay, all these are a variety of phrases you can use. Now vary the way you describe time, rather than always saying, there was a period of fluctuation in the income of lovely loaves from 2000 to 2004. So rather than always saying, oh, from this to this, or between this and that, use a variety of other phrases. So it could be from, to, between, and is pretty common, but you could say, oh, in the first 4 years of the graph, in the beginning of the graph, in the first 4 years of the graph, in the last 5 years of the graph, over the next year. So I could say something like, okay, let me just show you this. Okay, so okay, let me just describe this. Let's go bigger. I'm going to describe here one part, and then the second part from here to here. Okay, because this is a dramatic fall. Okay, so I could say something like, you can start with, okay, if you're going to talk about, if this is the, say this is the third paragraph, which is the first body paragraph, you can, and you want to start describing this first, and then maybe the next paragraph, the fourth paragraph, these two, you want to start, you could say, maybe you can start with to begin with, the annual income of lovely loaves fluctuated from 2000 to 2004. Okay, now rather than saying from, you could say in the first 4 years of the graph. Okay, then rather than put full stop, then you could use, maybe you could use one of this, following this, comma. Now, I don't want to use the same structure. The annual income of lovely loaves fluctuated. Now, what structure is that? Okay, if you remember, it's basically using this, the first one, which is the most common kind that students will use. Okay, maybe I want to start using this. Okay, so I would say following this, there was a dramatic fall from around 90,000 pounds in 2004 to just above 60,000 pounds in the following year. Now what did I do? I used a different structure. I used this structure. And what else did I do? Okay, I used a some of one of these phrases to join together, and I didn't just use from what to what. In this I used in the first 4 years. Okay, during the first 4 years, in the first 4 years, over the next year, then after the second part, to just about in the following year. Okay, rather than in 2005 I put in the following year. Okay, what else did I use? I used this different ways to describe approximation. Remember, you have to be very careful in what you talk about, because you don't want to say this is 82,000. Do you know this is 82,000? No, it could be. It's around there. You could say around. So if you want to say 82,000, you can say around, about, approximately, roughly. Okay, because it is not 82,000. You don't know it's 82,000. Okay, and then here maybe it's about 95. You can say around, about. Okay, but you don't want to say just 95,000 because you don't really know. Okay, and then so there was for around, and then just above. Just above, you see I'm using another way, just or slightly above, over. Okay, so just or slightly means a bit. Okay, so that's just a bit. This is not 60,000. Don't put 60,000. You could put to around 61,000 or 62,000. That's fine. Or you could just use another way of expressing that, to just above. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so these are some of the phrases that you could use. All right. Okay, so basically what we have so far, okay, we've gone through this. I've just showed you how to write these two sentences describing this part, fluctuation, dramatic 4, using two different sentence structure. This one is one, this one is another, and then using a variety in terms of the way. Firstly, we use connecting two changes together. Words vary the way you describe time. We vary the way we describe approximation. Okay, so let me just go through this. This is, remember now, this is just showing you how to describe the line graph from here. 1, 2. We have not done this. Okay, and yeah, of course you have not done this, you've not done this, and don't forget, okay, this is not the only thing you want to do. You realize that just describing that, let's just go and take a look at how many words that is. Okay, that is 40 words already, and we've only described 1, 2. Okay, can you imagine we still have to talk about this, and this? Okay, so that's the reason why, I'm just giving you an example. I'm not saying that you should be using this, okay, but I'll show you an example of how I do this. Okay, you have to, as I mentioned, you have to always make a decision what you're going to focus on. All right, and I wanted to say, don't forget these two things, which is that you want to describe changes over time, which this is pretty much changes over time. Okay, but you also want to compare within a subject and compare between subjects, and you see what I mean by this. Okay, compare within and between subjects. Okay, so let's go to this, and let's go to the so-called model answer. Okay, a lot of my model answers, I don't make it fantastic, because if I model the answer after, say, a 9, then it'll be too high for most people. Okay, so I'm just modeling it something that it's attainable for most students here. Okay, of course with perfect grammar, the grammar would be pretty much perfect in my model answers. Okay, so again, describing changes over time is yellow. Compare within a subject or compare between subjects is the green. Okay, so anyway, this is the paraphrase. This is the overview. I'm not sure if this is the same as what I wrote just now. Okay, plus using the same principles. Okay, now here we go to, now how did I did this a while back. Okay, so let's see how I actually describe this. All right, let's look at the first body paragraph. To begin with, the yearly income of Robbie's Bakery okay, so I started with Robbie's Bakery, remained stable at around £55,000, okay, at around, okay, because you don't know exactly, from 2000 to 2005. Again, you could even say in the first half of the decade. 2000 to 2005 is the first half of a decade, right? Remember, I give you various phrases, in the first half, in the first decade, in the first half of a decade. Again, that you could even change it if you want to. Okay. Subsequently, again, I use a connecting words here. Subsequently, okay. Subsequently, it increased. The yearly income increased dramatically to just above £100,000. See, just above £100,000 by the end of the graph. See, I don't put by 2010. I don't put from what to what. I just put increase to just above £100,000 by the end of the graph. Okay, so I use different ways of expressing the time too, and I use approximation to just above, I don't say to around 105,000 or whatever it may be. Okay, by the end of the graph. Okay, now this is describing the changes over time. Now, do you realize that I pretty much had two sections? One, this is a period of stability, then this one increased. Now, I don't go, then after that it increased gradually, because this is kind of like a gradual thing. This is a bit steeper, right? This is gradual, this is steep, okay? This is a sharp, okay, a dramatic, whatever you want to call it. But I don't do that. I don't have one more section, another section, another section. No, it's too detailed. So I just have two sections, from here to here, from here to here, okay? Now, let's look at the green part, okay? Its income overtook that of Lovely Lowe's between 2005 and you see this income overtook, the Robbie's Bakery income overtook that of Lovely Lowe's between 2005 and 2006 and became the highest income by 2010. Now, what am I doing? Okay, I am comparing between subjects here. Now, let me just say this. When you have a trend, when you have a time graph with a time period, every time there's an overtaking involved, and you can see that in line graphs. Okay, not every time, again, you have to choose, but see, there are two overtakings here. This one here and this one here. Now, if you had to choose one, which is more important? I would say this is more important. Why? Because when the income of Robbie's Bakery overtook that of Lovely Lowe's, what happened? It became the first, right? This one overtook, it went from the third to the second. So I think this is more important now. So if there's an overtaking and there's an important overtaking, I would describe it. Okay, this is comparing between subjects. What do I mean by comparing between subjects? I mean that by you saying that it overtook, this income of Robbie's Bakery overtook the income of Lovely Lowe's, that's comparing. Okay, you're saying it overtook, it became higher, right? The second thing is it says overtook and became the highest. Then it became the highest, right, by 2010. In fact, it became the highest from 2006 to 2010. Okay, so now what am I doing here? I'm saying that it became the highest by saying it's the highest, superlative, the highest. It is comparing. Every time you say, either you say this is higher than, that's using a comparative, it's comparing. If you're saying this is the highest, number one, it is, aren't you saying that everything else is second, third, or fourth? But this is number one. This is comparing. Okay, that's what I mean by comparing between subjects. That's what the whole, make comparisons where relevant. That's what the examiner is looking for, to see whether you can compare these, compare all the subjects here. Okay, so that's the reason why it's green, because you're comparing within, and then you're saying is number one, which is a comparison also. Okay, now as for Bernie's Barnes, now you when you start focusing on another subject, you can put as for, regarding. Okay, then this is a comparison. Where's Bernie's Buns? Bernie's Buns is green. Okay, green here. Its income began at a much lower figure of much lower. What do you mean by much lower? Because here you said to begin with, the yearly income it began at 55,000, right? Then you say much lower. What does that mean? It's comparing and saying, oh, not just lower, but much lower. It's again comparing much lower than what? Much lower than the beginning of Robbie's Bakery. Again, do you see that's a comparison phrase? It's comparing the beginning of, the income of Bernie's Buns in 2000 with the income of, say, Robbie's Bakery in 2000, okay, of 20,000 pounds, but increased drastically, okay, increased drastically. That means the increase was a huge increase to over 60,000 pounds by 2010. Okay, I could say rather than by 2010, because I did use by 2010 here, right? Actually, I'm going to say became the highest income. I wouldn't say by 2010, but from, because it became the highest. When did it become the highest? From 2006 to 2010. Okay, that's more accurate. It became from 2006, it became the highest. Now, going back to this, so it increased drastically to over 60,000 pounds by 2010, or you can say increased drastically to over 60,000 pounds by the end of the graph, whatever it may be. Okay, so all the way. Now you realize I just used one sentence to talk about from here to here. I don't want to go into details like, oh, it went up, then it went down, etc., because you don't have time. Okay, now then I'm not finished yet. This figure was more than 3 times its original one. Do you see this here? What am I doing? Green color, comparing between subjects. Sorry, not between subjects, but comparing within a subject also, which means comparing the first and the last. All right, I'm comparing, oh, this guy, this income is 60,000 plus, this one is 20,000. Wow. Remember I just said that that's quite something that's significant, so I mentioned it here. This figure, which means the end figure, 60,000 pounds, over 60,000 pounds, was more than 3 times its original one. Do you see that comparison again? You're comparing this with this. Okay? Now, comparing the end with the beginning is one form of comparison. Okay, I didn't do it for Robbie's Bakery. Rather, I mentioned that it was number 1. Okay, I'm not always going to do this comparing the end with the beginning every time. Okay, it's not necessary, and you have to make a decision as to what you want to focus on. But I think this is okay. I think this is pretty significant. I mean, 60,000 plus 3 times 20,000. Even for this, which is 100,000 plus, and this maybe is about 55, this is not even twice. Okay, so this is 3 times. Okay, this is probably more significant, so I compared it there. Okay, then I moved on to the first, remember the first body paragraph? Remember I told you there are 2 ways to do this, to structure the body 1 and body 2. One is body 1 addresses 1 or 2 subjects. Body 2 addresses the other 1 or 2 subjects. So body 1, this is the precise way I'm doing. Body 1 address these 2, and then the body 2 address Lovely Loaves. Okay, the other way, as I mentioned before, body 1 addresses the earlier period. Maybe body 1 addresses all these 3 subjects from 2000 to 2005, and body 2 addresses the 2005 to 2010, something like that. Okay, but I'm using this particular method of dividing my body 1 and body 2. All right. Okay, so carrying on. We go to, okay, the income of Lovely Loaf. So we had the second body was, the income of Lovely was the highest in 2000. Okay, so now I'm going to start with a comparison, green, comparing, because by saying again it was the highest, what does it mean? Just now we said this was the highest from 2006 to 2010, but that's at the end of the graph. Here we're saying it was the highest in 2000. Okay, I'm again doing a comparison at around 82,000 pounds, full stop. It fluctuated in the first 4 years. Okay, this is talking about changes over time using fluctuation. Okay, then plunge is a dramatic decrease. Okay, you don't use a modifier. Plunge here, plunged. Okay, we're using the verb, no modifier, because a plunge already means a dramatic, huge decrease. All right, plunge to half its original figure in 2010. Okay, so this is why I'm again comparing from here well, I'm saying that the end product to half its original figure is here. Okay, so this is 40 to half its original 8. This is about 80 plus. Okay, so this is half. Again, I'm comparing from the first and last. This compared to this, just as the same way I compared this is 3 times this. Now, do you realize just now when I gave you the example here, I think, all right, I talked about, I had this one first here, then I had the dramatic fall. Then if I were to describe it this way, then I have to have another section, right? So there'll be 3 sections, but that will be too much. So in this actual example, I just went from here, fluctuation, and then a dramatic plunge. Okay, so I only have 2 sections because I don't want to, you make your decision. Do you have enough time? Do you have enough space? Okay, and then I put this meant that it had the lowest income of all 3 bakeries. Again, I'm comparing, saying it is the lowest. Just now I said it as highest. Now I say it's the lowest. Okay, so this, how many words is this? This is already 187 words. Okay, now perhaps I could do it this way. I could add the additional, there was a dramatic fall, then after that it fell, then the third part. If I wanted, I may put about 20 more words in, which makes it about 200, slightly above 200, or I could just leave it like that. Okay, that's good enough. So I have changes over time. I have comparing, okay, green and yellow. Okay, go and study this, because these are the 2 things you want to do when you describe, when you are writing your task 1 for your a graph with a time period. Okay, so now I have not talked about this. This is for future, because there will be times where you will be given a future. You see, all this is in the future. 2020 is in the future. Basically what we've been doing, and most of them are in the past, which is you use the past tense, but if you get a future, you will need to use a future tense, and not just the future tense, because the future tense generally signifies that it will happen, but you could use some of these phrases like it is estimated, what is estimated to increase, because you are not sure. It is not future in the sense that you are 100% certain, because nobody can tell the future, can they? So this is all, if you're talking about a future graph like that, where the periods in the future, it is basically a prediction, an estimation. Okay, nobody can tell that this is exactly what's going to come to pass. Okay, so I leave you with this. This is basically, it's a long, it's a long video covering all of this, because this is the most common. All right, I won't spend so much time over the next 3 videos, but this is the most common one. So just going through again to go through what we've learned for this time period. You have an introduction, which is paraphrase, your overview, which you're mainly talking about the trend. I give you 3 different sentences, sentence structure. Then these are to talk about changes over time, but changes over time is just 1. You can also compare. All right, so after that I give you all these phrases you can use to talk about. These are all changes over time. Okay, then these are ways to join 2 changes together, so that you don't use the same thing over and over again. Vary the way you describe time, vary the way you describe approximation. This is for the future. Combining it all together, you have introduction, overview, and you have the yellow and the green, the yellow being the changes over time, the green being the comparison. Okay, and then you have to make your decision. You vary the way you do things, the time period, you vary the way you describe approximation, etc. And you talk about both the changes over time and the comparison, and you have to decide what am I going to focus on, because you cannot be too detailed. Okay, so study this video again, go through it 1 or 2 more times. And if your homework, I give you some homework. I'm not sure if I put this in the homework, but whatever it be, use all these phrases that I've taught you here.